What's up everybody, it's Marrista, your California kitchen witch, and I decided to start doing more YouTube videos where I give baking tutorials and show just different ways to cook as a vegan. Today I'm going to be making yeast-less pizza dough and homemade pizza sauce for, you guessed it, a pizza. In order to see that full video, you're going to have to be following on Melanin Squared. But for me personally, I just want to show how to do it in case you don't know how. And if you're curious or you thought it was hard, I'm here to show you and tell you it's not. Before we begin and really get into the nitty-gritty of things, I wanted to explain what the yeast is used for and what I'm replacing it with. So basically, yeast is used in most breads and doughs to help it rise, to help it go from being a small little lump of dough into a big fluffy lump of dough, and it also helps it rise when it's in the oven. Yeast is a vegan product. The reason I'm not using yeast is because for whatever reason, all of the stores near me don't have yeast right now. I don't know if baking is really popular in the quarantine right now, but we're out of yeast. So I am doing a yeastless pizza dough. In order to do that, I'm going to be replacing my yeast with baking soda. You can do a 1-to-1 transfer or exchange of yeast to baking soda. It's not going to have the same rise, and you don't need to let it rest like you would a yeasted dough because the baking soda activates when it hits the water. So it doesn't have to sit and rest and rise and mature in order to get fluffy, but it's not going to get as fluffy as the yeasted dough unless you use a little bit extra baking soda. If you don't have baking soda either, baking powder and an acid will also do the trick, like vinegar. This is just an alternative for if you don't have yeast, if you can't eat yeast, or if you don't want to use yeast, using baking soda instead. So yeah, let's do this together. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video if you like what you see, but for now, let's get cooking. I'm just gonna come in quick and share the ingredients that I'm using. For my pizza sauce, I've got tomatoes, vinegar, oil, garlic, shallot, onion, pasta blend, which has my black pepper, oregano, and other pizza sauce seasonings in there. And I actually put olives into my pizza sauce to add that extra saltiness instead of just putting salt. And I like the extra layer of flavor that it adds. There's also going to be a little bit of sugar in there as well. And for my pizza dough, I'm also using the vegan sugar, pink sea salt, flour. I'm using bread flour because I like a crispy thin crust. This is going to be a thin crust pizza. And baking powder. I'm pretty sure I said baking soda before, but baking powder instead of yeast. Walmart has this vegan sugar. If you don't know the difference between vegan sugar and salt and regular sugar and salt, white sugar and salt that you commonly find in the stores have animal bone char in them, and therefore they're not vegan because it contains animals. Surprise, you're eating bones when you eat salt and sugar. This stuff doesn't have that in there. It's naturally bone char free, as it should be, and so that's what I'll be using. Alright, my magical people, it's time to make our pizza sauce. I would recommend getting yourself a high-powered blender, but if not, just cut up your ingredients beforehand because it might be a little too chunky to get completely blended down unless you have a high-powered blender. I'm gonna put my, maybe I should cut these down because this is kind of big. Yeah, I'm gonna cut these down real quick just because they're big. I'm just cutting off these little nubby bits because they don't taste very good and there's no flavor. Like there's nothing adding to it. It's not pleasant to eat it, so I'm just cutting that off. I know it looks really watery now, but once we get it on the oven once we get it on the stove top and cooked down, that is going to change drastically. I didn't get unpitted olives, so I'm going to take the time to pit these and add them in. Now that I've successfully de-pitted all of those olives and I've got the rest of my ingredients except for the seasoning in here, I'm going to blend it all down until it's smooth, because if you'll remember, I still have chunks of onion and shallot in there. Now that I think I'm not going to run into any chunks, it's time to move on to our next step. I've got my sauce blended. I'm going to be putting it into this pot so that it can boil down. Well, it's going to boil first and then simmer. So I'm going to add my sauce, a couple of tablespoons of sugar, and some of my seasoning. Now I'm just going to stir it all together and let it come to a boil. Once it does come to a boil, I'm going to bring it down to a simmer and let some of the liquid cook out so that it starts to look more like a recognizable tomato sauce and not so liquidy. Alright y'all, it is time to begin working on the pizza dough. In order to do that, I'm going to take my bread flour, sugar, baking powder instead of yeast, salt, and I'm going to be using black peppercorn and chili oil instead of regular oil, just to give my crust a little extra oomph, and because I like a little spice when I'm cooking. So my first step is going to be adding my flour. Now it's time for the fun part. I'm going to take this poorly lumped ball of dough and knead it into a beautiful, beautiful ball of pizza crust on my countertop right here. Now it's just time to let my little dough boy rest for about 10 minutes. Okay friends, it's time for the finished product. The pizza sauce has reduced down about halfway. If you like a chunky sauce, this is perfect. You don't need to do anything else. You've found your match. But if you want your sauce to be a little bit smoother, just throw it back into the blender and just give it another blend until it's the smoothness that you like. Make sure to wait until it cools down a bit before you try and pop it in the blender, because it could blow the lid off if you start it with all that steam built in there, and that would be most likely painful and definitely very messy. So wait till it cools down and blend it until smooth. Alright friends, it's time to blend down this pizza sauce so that it is smoother. I've also got my little dough boy here for you to examine, my pizza dough ball. It did not get any bigger because unlike yeast, baking powder and baking soda, but baking powder, because that's what I used, is not going to give you the same kind of lift and rise as a yeasted dough. So this is going to make, at least for me, the kind of perfect thin crust, because it will puff up a little bit thanks to the heat in the oven, but not too much. And also, at least I think, because I use bread flour, it's gonna have a better crust on it. I'm gonna get a nice good, fingers crossed, crunch when I finally bake this off and make it into a pizza. Really hope you liked this video and this tutorial and explanation on just a quick and easy way to make pizza dough and pizza sauce. Hopefully it encourages you to cook more at home and get creative with your meals and recipes. If you are vegan and you weren't sure about a quick and easy dough recipe, well, now you've got one. I'll link the recipes that I used down below in the description. I obviously made tweaks to them as far as seasonings and the kinds of oil that I used, but this is the base for the recipe that I got. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come back for more. I'm excited to be doing this. It's really nice to put a little piece of myself out there, do something that I love for the heck of it. If there's anything you would like to see me make in my vegan test kitchen, let me know down in the comments. Give me suggestions, recommendations. Let me know what you would like to see, what you would like to have me make for you. Maybe there's something that you didn't think could be vegan, and I can show you that yes it can. This is how you do it, and this is why it is the way it is. I really hope to see you in the next video. If you make my pizza dough and you make my pizza sauce, share pictures with me. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MarristaKS. Love to see your photos. I would love to know tweaks and variations that you've done, if you do a gluten-free version, that sort of thing. I love sharing recipes and I love sharing ideas. But until my next video, it's been fun baking with you. I'll see you later.